Asking a PhD student if they're going to become a professor is kind of like asking an MBA graduate if they're going to become the CEO of $1 million company. Sounds pretty unrealistic, guys, it is. So it's still the common belief that a scientist who does a PhD is going to end up as a professor at a university. And that's just no. What they mean when they say they think you're going to become a professor is that you're going to end up working in a university, running your own lab and giving lectures. However, a professor is just a title that is given to someone who's been doing that at a university for many years, and in fact most people who own their own labs and give lectures are not actually technically professors. But that's not my point. So let's run some numbers to figure out how likely it is that a PhD graduate will end up being an academic lab head. Most academics who run their own lab hold that position for about 30 years. Pretty much the top of the career chain for an academic researcher, so there tends to be pretty low turnover in those positions. Most university labs would probably be able to pump out about 1.5 PhD graduates per year, so that over the course of an academic's career you're looking at them producing about 45 PhD graduates. Academic labs and universities aren't created or removed very often, so you're looking at about a 1 in 45 chance that you'll be able to replace your boss. Or someone else's boss, you get what I mean. While 1 in 45 might sound like reasonable odds, think about it in people terms. For every one person that gets that career, what happens to the other 44? Here's a selection of organic chemistry PhDs who either now or in the next couple of years will be looking for jobs. They're all from the same university and will have identical qualifications on their resume. They would all like to stay working in science research. Most of them, however, will not. The first step for PhD graduates who want to stay in research is to get a full-time job working in a lab, but this usually involves a contract of 1 to 2 years. Of a selection of graduates like this, about 2 of them will be able to find such a job. Once these contracts have expired, they need to figure out how to either get their own funding or find a very rare and coveted permanent position. This is much harder to do, so one of these will probably end up back in our pool of PhDs looking for jobs. There are of course other jobs available, but they're not typically the positions you anticipate for a PhD graduate. Some graduates will end up as teachers, some could end up working in marketing, selling reagents and equipment to scientific researchers, some might end up as editors for scientific journals or in other realms of scientific communication and publishing. Most will end up in vague, generic office jobs that don't have a clear category, like consulting or government work. One will probably change career path altogether, such as taking up a trade, opening a cafe, or working in banking or something like that. It's becoming increasingly apparent that the scientific industry is churning out more PhD students than it knows what to do with. Students with very specific skills for an industry that doesn't have the positions to take them. And for the most part, universities rarely make this issue clear to prospective students. So it's common to see students entering their PhD with the anticipation of a clear and straightforward career path at the end. But this just isn't the case. Realistically, a PhD in scientific research should be advertised as a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Something you dabble in for the exciting possibility of contributing knowledge to the world, but let's face it, it's probably not going to be something you spend the rest of your life doing. I mean, sure, you'll come out of it having developed generic useful skills, like critical thinking skills, and teamwork and collaboration, project management, presentation and writing skills. But most non-research jobs like the ones I mentioned don't require a PhD to retain, so it can make it seem like getting your PhD was all... Maybe in hindsight, you might have spent your time doing something else. Like getting an MBA, perhaps.
Hey, who's going to graduate next?
You said right? Oh, hey, isn't it Steph?
Yeah.
Steph, what are you going to do when you graduate?
Have you started writing yet?
Are you going to be a professor?
Got any postdocs lined up?